When Our Secrets Keep Us. Kristina Wong is a performance artist, comedian, and writer whose solo shows, ensemble plays, and culture jamming projects have toured North America, the UK, and Hong Kong. We are very fortunate to have her with us today. Please welcome Kristina Wong.
Yay! Thank you. So I totally picked the wrong conference to wear mascara to. Did anyone else make the same mistake? If my eyelashes just fall out during the middle of the day, it's because the glue just got unhinged. So don't worry, not late set eye alopecia that set in. This, I will have to say, these last 2 weeks with the news have been the worst weeks imaginable to also be writing a speech for a mental health conference. There is no shortage of triggering inspiration available in the news. I feel like we watch the TV. What gets me? I watch the news. I will still have notes with me as I deliver my speech right now because I was kind of consumed watching Dr. Ford's testimony yesterday. I think many of us were, and I was actually watching it in the back of an Uber and finding myself crying. And if there's anything worse than crying in the back of an Uber, it's crying in the back of an Uber pool, which meant every few streets we pick up a new person to watch me cry. So anyway, how is everyone doing? Good. Just fake it till we make it, right? So I'm gonna share with you all a huge secret. It's a big secret. It has the potential to bring down the Wong family name. So that's 1/6 of this world and half of San Francisco. This secret is so big that that it brings so much shame to my mother, more than paying full price at Ross, or for electronics, or not having graduated UCLA with honors, which I did not. Yeah, I know. I heard gasps in the back, but is my mom back there? What's going on? But I'm about to tell you this huge secret. Are you ready for this big secret? Yes. All right. When I was 19, I was assaulted. There was a man who lived downstairs from me in my home and came upstairs, and I had fought him off, but he attempted to assault me. But that's not the secret. The secret is that to deal with that, I went to see a therapist. That's the secret. And because I'm such a baller, I didn't just see one therapist during college, I saw two. Now, it's not a thing that Chinese Americans, which I am, talk about very often, going to therapy. It's not something that is talked about a lot in public, especially in my community of Chinese Americans. Are there Chinese Americans in the house? Make some noise. Exactly. So I didn't identify with pop culture images of people being depressed, which made it really difficult for me to imagine that I could be depressed. I didn't identify with images of rock stars addicted to painkillers, with a stable of emo fans worshiping their every move. I didn't identify with celebrities running around Sunset Boulevard without panties for the paparazzi. I didn't identify with the stock images of white women, always posed on psychological brochures in front of rain-speckled windows. Perhaps you have one in your office. None of these images were me. I was a funny, I think I'm still funny, I hope I'm still funny by the end of this, a funny, kind of jokey person, but I was unhappy a lot of the time. And I very much thought that being miserable was just part of being Chinese American. Just the way it is, right? Had my parents and my grandparents not endured through their misery, pushed through, I would not have the opportunities that I do today. Bucking up, pushing through our misery, this is what we pass on to the next generation. Because Chinese people, we do not strive to be happy. We strive to be successful. So the first time I went to see a therapist was before the assault happened. It was when I was in college, and I it was supposed to be this great new world, right? I was living far away from my parents, I had infinite freedom. They were in San Francisco, I was in LA. And what I didn't realize was going to happen was I was completely side-smacked by the racism and sexism that for my entire life I had just learned to swallow. I had been raised not to rock the boat, to understand this is the world, this is the way the world reads you, and this is the way you're going to work around it. There was a time when men would come up to me as a teenager and say, you know, I've always wanted to date an Asian girl. I've never tried one of those before. And I would think, wow, I have a chance. There was a time that I had thought to myself, that's flattering. And when I got to college, I finally thought, whoa, I've been sitting on all this resentment this whole time. I've been taught this whole time just to regurgitate facts and spit them back out to do well on tests. And now I don't know what to do with all this anger and all this rage. And it was bubbling inside of me. And I just found myself just walking around my campus like, come at me, oppressor. Say it again. I'm ready for you this time. Come on. I was mad at my parents. Why didn't you teach me to fight back? What's wrong? But it wasn't just this anger. I was getting stress ulcers that were keeping me awake at night and during the day. I wasn't able to focus on classes. I had all this rage and resentment. And I'd heard about therapy. I wasn't quite sure what it was or what really happened in those sessions. I knew from my mother that it cost too much and that if anybody found out that I ever saw a therapist, I would not be able to get a job when I was older. This, of course, is not true. What's interesting, too, is that both my parents were born in San Francisco. I'd seen therapists on shows like Growing Pains and Frasier, and they would always sit their clients down on a couch, nice little couch. For $150 an hour, they would pine their lives, and that therapist would say some magic thing to them to make that pain go away. It was like this magic that only white people had access to. Something happened on this magic couch. And it was so expensive, which always begged to me the question, if you can afford $150 an hour and take off half the day to go see a therapist, do you really have any problems? I mean, how is that different than talking to your friends or just shutting up? And is your health really worth that much money, right? Because I always thought to think of myself in numbers. So I had learned that as part of my tuition at UCLA, you get 8 free sessions at Student Psychological Services. You're entitled to that as part of your tuition. And as a Chinese American, I'm kind of caught between two worlds. In one case, it's really shameful to go see somebody about my problems. On the other hand, that's $1,000 in free services that are going unused. It's shameful, but it's free. It's shameful, but it's free. And so I decide I'm going to call. I wait for both my roommates in my dorm room to leave. I'm crouched in the corner of the room because this is before cell phones. And in my tiniest mouse voice, I try to make an appointment. And tears are already coming down my face. And the woman who's on the other side of the phone lets me know there are no appointments this week or next week or the week after that. As it turns out, there are all these people on my campus who can't deal with their shit either. And I'm thinking, who are all these people just walking around my campus, my happy, ever-moving campus, who are losing their minds? And the woman on the phone, she asked me, are there any personal circumstances that might warrant you coming here sooner? And I didn't realize this was an audition because I don't have an audition monologue prepared. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm so angry I want to hurt somebody. No, don't say that, don't say that. I'm mad at my mom because she just sees me as a financial asset and not emotion. No, they don't really care. They want to see blood, they want to see guts, they want to see open wounds. Yes, I'll come in 4 weeks. Yeah. So when it's time for me to finally go to my appointment at Student Psychological Services, I take the long way around campus, the one where a minimal amount of people will run into me. I make sure I have my sunglasses on, my hat. I time it so that I spend a minimal amount of room in the waiting room. I I am just devoured by a magazine in the waiting room. Who are all these people in the waiting room? They're spies. They're spies who are going to report to the entire campus how crazy I am. And I wait in the corner, and I hear, Kristina, they're ready to see you. Shh, not so loud. And I enter the office, and it's like the stage is set. It's the couch, the box of Kleenex, and a clock facing outwards to my free therapist, who is an older white man. And I'm not sure what's supposed to happen in these sessions. I don't know if I'm supposed to be crying this much or telling this many stories. I find it kind of awkward to explain to this man how much resentment I feel about the racism I've experienced. And now my new job is to make sure he feels comfortable about how I'm expressing my experiences with racism in this session. So I use vague terms to describe it. It's like I'm different and other people treat me differently because I'm different. Silence. Am I boring my therapist? I am totally boring my therapist. So I add more detail. I jazz it up. We all know the rule of therapy. If there's a box of Kleenex in the therapist's office, it must go off. I add more details of mania. I turn up the waterworks. And at the end of our hour, he looks to me and says, well, Kristina, some people just communicate differently. Some through clicking sounds, some through song. We just have all different ways of communicating. And that's it. I came for a life-changing transformation. I get Cliff Notes to Margaret Mead. Every week, after the session, I would go to the therapist and try to make my next appointment without looking them in the eyes. Then I would run to the bathroom to pat down my swollen face so that I could face the campus again. And then I would go in the next week thinking, okay, this is the week of the breakthrough. This is the story where I'm going to get the wisdom. This is the moment where it's all going to shift and change. And I'd get the same sort of feedback. Well, let's talk about this more next week. I think word was getting around to people on campus that I was going to SPS. No, I'm not going to SPS. No, everything's fine. No, me? I don't have a problem. Why would I be seeing somebody if I have a problem? I don't have a problem that I'm seeing somebody for. I'm totally fine. I'm totally fine. Oh God, please don't tell anyone. I'm totally fine. And then my 8 free sessions hit their max, and I was no longer entitled to free help. And I actually felt better because I no longer had to recount the worst of my life. The following year is when I experienced the assault attempt. It was a man who lived downstairs who had come into my unit in finals week in June, and he started to scream at me. He himself, I believe, was mentally ill, pushed me onto my futon. I pushed back. Another roommate on that floor managed to pull him off of me. We called the police. I had to drop out of 2 classes. And I wasn't sure what was going to happen because I was planning to live in that house again in the fall, and I wasn't sure if he was going to still be there. I'd expected, of course, he's going to be evicted, right? Of course I'm not going to be forced to move from my cheap apartment because of this man, right? But that wasn't the situation. He was still there in the fall, despite having a police report and everything like that. And people would say to me, people say you're stupid because you're staying in that house. People think you're dumb for doing that. Why do you live there? And I began to feel like I was being criticized. And I had to put up my face even bigger. No, I'm fine. I'm happy living there. No, nothing's wrong. No, I'm not stupid. I'm not an idiot for doing this. I'm totally fine. But I wasn't fine. I was falling apart. I was drinking alcohol to sort of self-medicate and get through it. I was crying in classes. And it became clear again, now that we're in a new school year, maybe I'll try to see if therapy will work again. So I call in my tiny mouse voice to make an appointment, and I'm told there are no appointments this week or next week or the week after that, but are there any circumstances that might move me closer to the front of the line? And I know this moment. This is my audition. This is my time. You only get one shot in this town, and this is it. So I put on my biggest audition face, and I let them know, yes, hi, I'm Kristina Wong. I'm here to read for the part of the free therapy client that needs to be seen immediately. Here's my sides. My monologue. You see, I was attacked in my home. I'm scared for my life. I don't know what to do. I am in great danger. Please help me. And that got me through that week. I decided to ask for a woman of color therapist. They didn't have a woman of color therapist available. They did have a graduate student who was Korean American who had to record me every session for her professor. And as I sat on that couch, I would look at that recorder and imagine all the people on the campus, people walking around me who I'd never know their faces, who knew everything about my life. And every session, I would turn on the waterworks, I would recount the worst of my week, of my life, and my Korean American therapist, who looked so much like me, would look at me, blank face, no reaction. I must be doing really badly. I need to perform bigger, badder. I would gather more mania, more pathos, more pain. I have so much pain. Come on, anything. Well, Kristina, looks like you're working through a lot right now. Let's talk about this more next week. I would see the receptionist to make my appointment for the next week, pat my face down, go back into that room, and I would repeat the cycle again and again and again. Finally, those 8 sessions were up, and I wasn't better than how I started. I began to wonder if something was really wrong with me. I mean, maybe nobody had seen anything like me before. I mean, Chinese and crazy? That's a combo no one's seen before. Chinese people aren't crazy, right? This is like a deadly combination. And maybe the fact that I've gone through 8 sessions and nobody can fix this is really proof that I'm unfixable. So I have to really maintain a face in case anyone knows that I'm totally fine. Yeah, I'm totally fine. I'm smiling. I'm totally fine. So don't get me wrong. For a lot of my friends, they will say therapy has saved their life. But it became clear in the 2 experiences I had in college that therapy was not going to be what saved my life. Therapy was not going to be what saved my life, and that's what made me have to look for something else. I think that my life was shifted by a class that I took at UCLA, taught by Peter Sellers, called The Invisible World. And in that class, we gathered as a class and we made performances all over the classroom. And I found that I could take all this ugly and make it a performance for my classmates. And after we ate hummus, gorgeous healing hummus, and we would eat and admire each other's stuff. And I realized I'm so much better at telling pathos for an audience. And I was inspired from that to go on and become a performance artist. I've toured a show called Wong Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest that toured from 2006 to, I stopped touring it in 2014, and it looked at the high rates of depression and suicide among Asian American women. And on my tours, I met all the Asian American women I never knew existed, women who have come up to me and confided about their suicide attempts, their struggles with depression. And when I meet these women, I wish that I had this space earlier, to hold this space for them to share. That had we known that we existed, that maybe we would have felt less alone and less ashamed. So thank you so much for your time.